welcome to the next edition of AtomicErgo. I'm your host, Earl-Ray Neal, and we are blessed to have with us today Albert Moore. Albert, we're very happy to have you, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
All right. Albert, your educational and professional background, it would take forever for me to get through it. So I'll do my best to kind of hit some of the highlights. I think you're coming up on your completion of your doctorate, I think in spring of 2024 from Virginia Tech. That is fantastic. Congratulations on that. Have an MS in Industrial and Systems Engineering from Virginia Tech, a BS from Industrial Engineering and Operations Research from Virginia Tech. You're a CPE, a CIH, and you're currently the chair-elect of the Ergonomics of American Industrial Hygiene Association. And I think you begin that huge job in June. Is that right?
Right. The new committee cycle starts in June.
All right, fantastic. And much like myself, you serve as an adjunct professor. I teach in a different college, albeit, but engineering, economy, industrial ergonomics, and industrial cost control. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's get right to it. We've Steve Davis, our CVO here at Ergonauts, is a big fan. And he would love for me to ask you out of the gate, why did you decide to pursue a focus on ergonomics in your career? Because it's obvious you could have done nearly anything that you wanted to do.
Well, with me, it's personal. I'm short, I'm left-handed, I'm color deficient, and I'm cross-eyed. And ergonomics addresses all of these types of things. Like, I've always been concerned about reach, adjustability. I remember the frustration I had not being able to drive my grandfather's tractor on the farm while my cousin did. He was only 6 months older than me, but he was taller and I couldn't do it. And then to me, the world is backwards. Being left-handed is like, it's frustrating. I remember one time, in order to get a left-handed desk into classroom I was in, I had to be classified as disabled. It's like, no, I'm just left-handed. And so I think it's important to make sure that you accommodate these differences in people. And with my color deficiency, like Ishihara dot tests are the bane of my existence. It's like you're so frustrated when you're looking at something and you know there's information there, but you can't access it, you can't see it, you can't process it. And so with ergonomics, you can do things like redundant coding so that you can avoid that problem and make things accessible to people. And then I didn't know I had amblyopia until I was in my early 20s. I always had good visual acuity, but I started feeling like I was a little nearsighted. So I went to the doctor, he tested me. And then, you know how when they keep asking you questions and the answers you're giving like aren't matching what they expect, it turns out that he found that I was cross-eyed, and so he prescribed prisms for me. And I still remember coming back home and after having gotten my glasses, and it was time to walk the dog. So I took the dog out. I lived nearby a trail that had at that time, it was in May, it was blooming with all these wild roses and the bushes and everything. And I was astounded. I looked at things and it's like, is this what the world is like? This is what people see? Because I had this, everything was deep. It's like, I was like, okay, I've been missing all this all my life. So the technology of the prism helped me engage the world better. And so ergonomics can add technology to people's work lives that do the same thing.
Well, when you look at your educational background and your career history, obviously you've put in a lot of hard work. You're a brilliant man. Where does your drive to succeed in ergonomics come from? Do you have any particular influencers?
Yeah, And watching earlier podcast, I was able to predict you would ask me this question. So I've been thinking about that. And here are my top 5. The first I would say is my mom. She was a librarian. And so from her, she taught me the value of imagination and the value of knowledge and how to find it. And my dad was a truck driver, and he drove like 100,000 miles a year, and he was always doing something. So I learned the value of hard work, and also that just to be persistent, because if you stay on the road long enough, you'll get where you're going. You will get to your destination. It just takes time. And then there was my grandmother. She was a lifelong learner, a tinkerer, and she was an early adopter of technology. And she set the example for me of like being open to new ideas and exploring how you could learn things no matter what your age. And she made her learning accessible. Like when she was teaching me some of her crafts, she would always face me. So then I could mirror her right-handed work in learning what I was going to do. And so you learn to make things accessible and then to share your knowledge with other people. And then the fourth is from Dr. Harry Snyder at Virginia Tech in the early 90s. He taught me or introduced me to non-parametric statistics. And I was just mesmerized by what they could do, because they relax the assumption that your data have to be, quote, normally distributed before you can actually get the right answers. And so this opened up to me this world of being able to extract knowledge, information from various kinds of data that you couldn't do with other techniques. And I'm still using these things today, and I promote them. I think they're just incredible. Some of them are so easy to use that you could teach children in elementary school with them to do experiments. But they're underutilized, so I always try to do that. And then the fifth one is from Dr. Valerie Vinda. He was giving the keynote speaker address at a Human Factors and Ergonomics Society conference I attended in the 90s. And as he was speaking, I had this like epiphany, this connection of what he was saying. This just made sense to me. And so I approached him afterwards, and we struck up a conversation. He had printed articles with him because at the time there were no PDFs, so he had to carry paper around. He autographed it, and he actually invited me to earn my PhD with him in Canada. And at the time, I was not so adventurous as I am now, so I decided to stay in the U.S. and didn't do my PhD at that time with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a lot of our listeners are going to want to know, I mean, obviously you have 5 research publications on exoskeletons, and your current research at Virginia Tech for your doctoral, as I understand it, is actually on exoskeletons, specifically
That's right.
The implementation of them into the workplace. So could you give us a 30,000 foot view of your work and sort of how you see that being implemented into the workplace?
Sure. The work that I've been doing has been with a fantastic group of people at Virginia Tech. Dr. Mari Nussbaum, Dr. Divya Srinivasan, Dr. Dickerson, and Dr. Sunwoo Kim. Just fantastic. We also had a partnership with UC Berkeley on things where we created a national survey on construction and people's expectations and beliefs on using exoskeletons. And we examined that. I used machine learning decision trees to figure out, okay, how would people's responses group them into whether they would, yes, want to wear it, maybe, or no. And so interested to find out what the barriers could be for those things. And that's ongoing as well. I'm trying to wrap up my dissertation with looking at the story of what is happening to people who have used these for longer term. How has the health and safety community had to adjust their processes to have exoskeletons to come on board, and what are the people's view now of them compared to what people would say after a lab experiment using one or from a survey type of thing. And in order to, I think, to make everything work, you could do a couple of things, or look at some existing resources to help people implement these. And I would start with the new AIHA competency framework of understanding and applying AREC, which is anticipate, recognize, eliminate, control, and then the last step, which is newer in the system, is to confirm what's going on. To look at that, which means you're doing the right things at the right time, and you have a managerial mindset that about things as well. And in that publication, they have very interesting graphics and a twist on the traditional hierarchy of controls. And they look at it from the perspective of sustainability. So they have on one end of the thing, the controls can be very sustainable, but I love the word they use to describe the other end of the spectrum, and that is precarious. And that would include all administrative controls, PPE, and things like that. And I think it's important to recognize that those things are more precarious than engineering controls. So you have to take more care, it takes more energy and input to keep them current. And one of the things that I think people could use as an existing framework for issues is to reference NIOSH's publication from 2019 on the use of exoskeletons intervention, where the article talks about exoskeletons being a potential way to reduce the residual risks that exist in tasks that where health and safety professionals have done what they could to reduce musculoskeletal risk, injuries, probabilities, but exoskeletons could help in addition to that.
Well, certainly, you know that exos have been, coming into the workplace for some time now, but they're still in their infancy, but certainly they're here to stay. I've started asking our guests about their legacy. I guess I am at that point in my career where I'm starting to think about mine a little bit in what I call my day job. What would you like your legacy to be as it relates to the use of exoskeleton technology?
That's a very interesting question. And in the big picture, I want to encourage people to adopt a necessary but not sufficient mindset. You have to have the exoskeletons designed properly. The biomechanics are solid. The machine is consistent, but you need to go beyond that. It's just not enough to have a product that actually does what it's supposed to do, but you have to integrate it with an existing system of people, managers, processes, and all of that. And so you need to make sure that what you're doing is going to optimize the whole thing. You're not just like sub-optimizing parts of it. And then just working to make sure that what you're doing is working. Actually, that's why there needs to be more research on how these things actually impact people's physical lives or their mental well-being too with these things. Just to keep asking questions. Just put them in there and then walk away.
So we mentioned the AIHA earlier. It's certainly one of the most respected professional associations in the world. You're currently the chair-elect. Tell us the number one thing that you would like to accomplish during your tenure as the chair. And when preparing for this, it was interesting. I saw a report that said there's only around 1,000 active practicing CPEs. And so I thought that was an interesting number, if that's correct.
Yeah, that was from a recent article that I published with Penny Stench and others about the value of having a CPE on board to help solve problems. But to answer your question about the ergonomics committee, one thing I'd like to do is continue building on the legacy that already it exists. We've been a very active, collaborative bunch of people. We've generated, like, just recently published the new ergonomics assessment toolkit, which is available from AIHA, and I would encourage everybody to go and download their copy for that. We're going to be reproducing that in Mandarin, Hindi, and Spanish, and other languages as soon as we can get all those things arranged. And I would like to, as we continue to build, I want to grow our collaboration with other ergonomics groups around the world. AIHA just recently had a new memorandum of understanding with HFES, and I've already reached out to the podcast guest from last episode to see how we could collaborate that way. And so I just want to increase the communication between us, because there are really not that many people doing this, and we all need to work together.
So one of the reasons I was so excited about having you on today is, you're an amazing mix of an academic, a practitioner, a researcher. We don't see that often. So when Ergonauts requested an interview, you conferenced with our CVO and our CEO. And one of the conditions that you had on understanding the systems approach, you wanted to experience, actually it's over this shoulder, the Ergo-Algo app. Now, I'm not asking you for an infomercial, but obviously you went through it, you did the training. If you don't mind, tell us what you thought about it.
Well, I think it fits into the industrial hygiene framework of problem analysis. For there are like two tiers. Like tier one is like initial gathering of information of the critical things, and so this tool gives you a systematic way to train people to go and collect the most like critical information from an office setting, and that usually relates to people's posture and reach and those types of things. And so the tool captures that information and helps guide people to make solutions on the spot with what they already have, so that you have an immediate improvement in people's comfort, productivity, and prognosis, I guess, for ultimately succumbing or not to musculoskeletal disorders. And then I think the value of it can be, by collecting so much data pretty rapidly, the company can get a great sense of what's going on, so they can divide the ergonomic issues into two things. One would be a common cause, such as, is it the way that they go about purchasing has created this, or the mindset that people have about ergonomics and adjustability and the cost thinking, instead of realizing that it's actually a benefit to do that? Or is it something then that's a special cause? So there could be, you could identify people that may need additional analysis from a CPE to figure out what's going on. Maybe for it's an ADA accommodation, return to work, or something like that. It could help alert people to those things.
So it sounds like you feel like, and I believe this, that there's a disconnect between the design industry and sort of the end users in the office. And I'm a big believer that the Ergo-Algo app can help bridge that gap. If you agree with that, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about that. Give us an example and of how you think we might be able to bridge that gap.
Well, it's my experience with doing just literally hundreds of evaluations in all kinds of settings, is that the disconnect can be in people's expectation for what shape and size people are. For example, when we go to shop for clothes, you come into the store and you can see that it is divided into different categories, for gender, age, that kind of thing. But the underlying factor from all of it is the size. People will not buy something and then go to wear it if doesn't fit. It's not flattering. It doesn't work for you. But we somehow don't take that same mindset and bring it to the office, where it's cubicle and everything looks the same. So people have that type of aesthetic. So I think we have to be more open to recognizing that people come in different shapes and sizes, and inherently. So you just have to just accept that reality and build things that are that way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I can't tell you how informative and enlightening it's been to spend some time with you today. I'm excited for you as you embark on your journey as the chair for AIHA. And as I mentioned earlier, it starts in June.
Mm-hmm.
So if you would maybe consider coming back late summer, sort of giving us an update about some of the work there, I would appreciate appreciate spending some more time with you if you'd like to do that. So
that sounds
all right,
good.
well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to leave those in the comments below. Our CBO, Steve Davis, watches these and will respond. If there's a topic that you would like for us to cover, feel free to leave that suggestion, or any suggestions of how to make the podcast more interesting. This is certainly a work in progress. We enjoy it. We enjoy the work of Ergonauts. And if you're interested in that, you can touch Steve Davis, our CBO and founder, probably most easily on LinkedIn. So with that being said, we appreciate your time. We appreciate you listening to us. I want to remind you to be good to each other, and we will see you next time on the Atomic Ergo podcast.